Okay, and I'll begin.
All right, so June 21st, 2023, 6 p.m. I would like to call this HOCP meeting to order. Welcome to all the board members and the HOCP staff for getting this together at late in the evening. To get the meeting started, I suppose everyone was able to spend time and review the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any questions from the minutes from the last meeting? All right, if none, then I would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Awesome, great. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone against? All right, hearing no opposition, the minutes from the previous board meeting are approved. So I think we're waiting for some remarks from Chelsea now.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So good to see you all. Today's meeting is going to be a good one. You'll have an opportunity to hear some of the directional focus areas for us for fiscal year 24 through Stephanie Moore in our budget requests and asks, as well as have an opportunity to get an update on how we're coming along with strategic planning and how HOCP will play a very important role in that process. So look forward to engaging with you all in those aspects. I just want to say, of course, as always, thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to support our efforts. And that concludes my very brief welcome remarks. The next agenda item is actually an item that I asked for to be added in the agenda. So Varun, if it's okay, I can kind of give a highlight on why I was proposing this potential subcommittee.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
Great. One of the ways that this particular nonprofit has supported HOC has really been to help funnel resources to support our programming, particularly our youth and over occasion, some of our seniors. Just STEM has been an area of focus, etc. And to support us when we are in the phase of planning for Inspire. And we really want an opportunity to leverage all of the resources, thought partnership of this board, even more than we have in the past, by requesting consideration of creating a subcommittee of members who would be interested in joining us as we think through what are some fundraising opportunities that we can pursue, potentially assisting with making some of those connections or thinking through grant opportunities, and really just helping to support us as we think about ways to raise additional money through our Inspire event, but also through other avenues that we have not yet explored. And so thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair, in adding this as an item for consideration. But this is a request from the staff. As you all know, we're very fortunate to have the support of John Voss, but he provides support not just for HOCP, but for our entire agency, and does a yeoman's job of completing and locating grant applications for the entire agency. So it would be great if we could have some support from individuals on this board who would be interested in potentially providing a little bit of their time to a fundraising subcommittee.
I'll jump in and just ask, are we thinking about this sort of more generally, I mean, I know our big fundraising event has been sort of the gala, and you know, we're in pretty good shape from a financial standpoint right now. Are you thinking this would just be sort of general as a way to sort of support our ongoing efforts and just trying to bump up that work a little more? Or are you seeing a need that we need to fill?
Well, I will say this, there are programs, for example, that don't get funded and haven't come to HOCP because of the fact that we haven't had the ability to create partnerships or leverage resources. And so it'd be an opportunity to hear from the board and from these committee members where we see opportunities, where we may want to even think about additional programming or resources that we're not currently engaged in. And even as it pertains to Inspire every year, there's an opportunity to more intentionally engage the board as we think about what that fundraising for that event is, and reaching out to key stakeholders, partners, etc. John, I'll let you also kind of chime in so that you can share what your experience is as it pertains to thinking about how to approach fundraising. Great. And walk us through your outline of how we could potentially leverage the resource. So I'll turn it to you, John.
Yes. So yeah, this would be a very multifaceted endeavor where I would meet with you on a regular basis or as needed to help identify certain grant opportunities. I could share with you basically the long-term plans of the Academy and some of their funding needs. I can share with you some of the grant opportunities that I'm pursuing and just ask for advice and recommendations on where else we could look for grant opportunities. We subscribe to the Foundation Center, which of course is a huge storehouse database of foundations throughout the country, and I use that. But you know, if anyone on the board has working experience with any particular foundations that we could help develop relationships with, that would be great. And also just your input on you know, searching for sponsors for our galas and other special events that we may put together, whether it's Giving Tuesday or other special campaigns. Maybe we could develop, we haven't done this before, but we can develop maybe a special campaign for a particular program where maybe, let's say, something like a scholarship program or a adult education program. And this way it would be a much more targeted approach to potential sponsors and other contributors. And then basically just, you know, give a short recap of our discussions at a board meeting when we meet. The fundraising committee would meet informally. There would be no action items, and we would not have to open it up to open meetings because we would not have a quorum. This would be primarily the function of the committee would be advisory and just some support.
Okay, that, John, is really helpful and illustrative. I have experienced fundraising. It's been a long time. Others on the board may have more. I'm thinking of you, Alexandra, maybe in the sense of like potential opportunities that are out in this space around resident services. But John, I'm happy to help you. Like I said, it's been a minute on the fundraising piece for me, but I can dust off skill set, unless there's others that you know, are like, and I assume you can have as many as you want kind of help with this. And the gala will maybe kind of, I mean, we're not doing it this year, it'd be next year, so that may kind of fall into that, or maybe that is still its own kind of entity and separate effort, but.
Yes, it'd be part of the overall umbrella of what the committee could help assist with. And also just to remind everyone that 2024, next year, HOCP will mark its 25th year. So we're hoping to have a really enhanced, expanded gala. And we're going to start like very soon. Already start reaching out in September so that our potential sponsors and funders could already write us in their next budget year. So so it would be it'll be less difficult to get them to contribute. And then hopefully we can remain as a budget item each year going forward.
I'm happy to participate. I'm not actually sure that I have as much of a sort of local network. My work so far and sort of engagement with funders has been sort of more at a national level. And there might be some opportunities there. So I'm happy to help. I'm not sure I have quite the network you're hoping for, Teresa, but I'm definitely happy to help.
Yeah, I mean, I similarly am not, I don't have the sort of local network, but John, happy to sort of think through and be in an advisory capacity. And then if we need to also think about like, who are the people locally that we maybe need to sort of tap to help on this? I mean, I think maybe I'm wrong, Chelsea and John, but maybe a fundraising committee doesn't have to be made up of exclusively board members. So maybe there's like, you know, other folks we can brainstorm and think about identifying to help us with this in a pro bono capacity, volunteer or whatnot. So I'll put some thought to that.
Yeah. Teresa, I do like that idea of bringing in even outside people into the pool. I think we have felt in the last, because fundraising, if done right, can take several years to bear the fruits. It's difficult to foresee that we will see the fruits like in 3 months or 6 months, or even at the time of the next gala. It might make a 5% or 10% delta in what we expect from the next year's gala. From Chelsea would know from the last 2 or 3 galas, looking historically, majority of the funders were the same, with the exception of 2 or 3 getting added or couple of dropping off the list. And majority of the funders also committed to those funds at least 3 months to 6 months in advance. The collections very near to the gala were very minimal, or not, or maybe inconsequential to the ultimate, results. So having said that, I think the strategy we place in now may not even bear the results next year, but it should. But I think something long term will be really helpful for this organization.
And I'm sure it will come into even greater form as we start to meet and start to discuss. So I will, maybe we could just schedule a phone call or a Zoom meeting real quick, Teresa and Alexandra. And Chelsea, I don't know if you like to sit in on that first one, or we can just kind of brainstorm in that first one and put more parameters.
Going, absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Hey, John, I'm sorry. I thought I was talking and I was muted. This is Eileen. I'm also happy to help. And I had one other question, which is any of the kind of grant writing or stewardship, is that's all with you, right? I assume there's no other staff to do that.
Yes.
And as it comes to the gala and kind of all of that, is there anybody else, or is that exclusively on you as well?
We have a large team that does that.
Yeah.
Very large
We have an
team.
events team and our public affairs division and Communications Division helps with the gala planning. But John is handling all of our grant work. And so that might be something we explore in terms of if we want to put some resources towards hiring a grant writer or hiring someone who could assist with locating and finding specific opportunities depending on the direction that the board decides to go, just to support John. It's just a lot of demands in terms of his time. But I think as we have opportunity to talk about what those potential opportunities may be, we will be in a better position to determine if that should be the recommendation.
Yeah, and the reason I was asking that, and maybe there's somebody else on your broader team, you know, part of the challenge, particularly outside of maybe traditional foundations, is, you know, how do you really stewardship folks well in between? And how can somebody who is a gala supporter maybe become another supporter in a different way? How do they, you know, really feel connected to the organization and the program? So that winds up being a lot of, you know, kind of communication touches that maybe are a little different than the current communication touches, but can be really powerful, I think, in trying, especially in building that local base. So if it was possible to think about somebody who maybe had that part of the role of, you know, it's really a communications role, but it really is that stewardship of, you know, or somebody is currently giving X, how do you get them to Y, right? Because all of that, and how do you do the stewardship to get them there? I think that would be also a very helpful strategy because you have a base to build on. So then thinking about how does that happen? And that takes some dedicated time and folks to be doing those outreaches.
Absolutely. And I would say that, you know, this is a little unique because the nonprofit is a subsidiary of HOC. And in some instances, if the nonprofit has its separate ED, that's their full-time job, is to fundraise, is to do the relationship building, along with various board members who might also take on different key stakeholders and maintain those relationships for support. But as it stands, we don't have a development director. We don't have a development team. We have John, who is, you know, providing resource and services to HOCP. So as we continue to develop and grow, we would be able to think through, is there, do we have resources that could support a staff person who might be a director of development that plays that ongoing role, or, you know, think about ways in which we can leverage that. But I think the first step is even having a subcommittee to just do an exploratory discussion on how are we approaching our fundraising right now, what are some next steps that we can take, and then ultimately what would be the long-term strategy or plan. But I think you raise really great points, Eileen, and really that's the normal course for a nonprofit, but then that would also require full-time staff support. Yeah.
Yeah. And Shashi, I think one thing I would like to add, like once I've always felt that to do something big, and since this organization is, I think, at the cusp of being able to be in that position to do something big, one of the requirements is sort of like a leverage thing, which has been missing. I see even when funders give us money, that is for like the good thing is it's unrestricted money, but it's always for a project or like 30,000, 20,000, something in that vicinity, and it goes away. I think if we can sort of maybe as an outcome of our, you know, what I think what Ken will be discussing later in the meeting today on our future, you know, goals and, you know, sort of ideas and mission. If we can think strategically and build a more clear path and create a project in which we can leverage what we have in the amount of money we have and how HOC can support us, and then create a plan in which more funders can see or envision a long-term, you know, giving, you know, sort of, you plan, because right now, for example, any bank, right, when they give us like $10,000-$20,000, but if they can envision giving us 50,000 over the course of next 5 years, something of that sort, long term with a big plan, and leveraging what we already have. I think we need to connect the financial pieces to the fundraising aspect. That's what my thought is here.
Absolutely. And I think as we go through the strategic planning process and the board is able to set its priorities, and we can also set some goals around those different priorities, financial goals that we can then convey to potential donors. And one of the challenges that we've experienced as it pertains to just even Inspire is the strategy that we have deployed of fundraising every other year. And what we hear back is the off year, we're not on people's radar and not in their budget cycle for the following year. And so it does take a lot to plan the events, but it is well worthwhile to get to a point where we're able to do something on an annual basis. And so if it's going to, so again, wanting to have this fundraising subcommittee to talk through some of these nuances, to get some more suggestions and ideas, but all of the feedback here, I think, demonstrates how valuable that particular subcommittee could be to support staff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Very encouraging. Varun, you're on mute.
All right, thank you so much. So I think am I on mute? No, okay. So I think the next item is to go to one of, so I think, John, you are going to go through the financial reports through May.
Yes, just real briefly, because it's basically a good segue right into our budget discussions for the next year. So you see on that first page of the memo, basically the balances of all of the discretionary funding awards that you made, and also of HOC Works, section 3. So I know the board will probably receive yet another request sometime in the fall for section 3 approval for another tranche of funds to help with tuition assistance. And so ultimately, out of all of the available funds that are not only discretionary but also undesignated, you have a total of $277,685 that's available for your discretion on designating. And then scrolling down, you see on the next one more page, AJ, you see basically our statement of financial position, and then our statement of activities. I don't know if anyone had any question on any of those reports. These two reports come right from HOC Finance, from Pradeep and his team, and they all reconcile with all the reports that I have to generate.
I did have a question as it relates to a later memo for the budget request, the number that I thought might not match, but I wasn't sure if I was missing something.
Okay. What page?
In the memo that you just went through that showed sort of the balance of the general ledger fund, you had it listed at 427,284.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on page 16 of the report, when you're talking about the budget impact, you have a different number listed for unrestricted funds. And I didn't know why those would be different.
Because, so AJ, if you go to, what page is that going to be? 14. So from the unrestricted, that 420.27, or let's see. Let me go back up to the first number that you were referencing.
Oh, I see it. You have a general fund and then you are
Yeah,
adding all
so-
these other, I see it here.
Yes, so
Okay.
out of all that, there's some in the discretion, the unrestricted that are already designated. So
Okay.
so that's what accounts for the difference.
Okay, thank you.
So since we're, well, before we do that, I guess it would be good for us to review the previous page, AJ, for the budget to actuals. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. You see, we did far better on the revenue side. We exceeded our budget expectations, all because of the gala. And then also we had fewer expenses, and that's primarily because this time last year when we drafted the budget, we were hopeful that things would return back to normal after COVID, but they didn't return back to normal as quickly as we thought they would. So we had fewer expenses. So because we were so far over budget, we didn't have to use any of our assets to balance the budget, since we are we have a net gain. And then the next page, you see all of the programs that we have to track, all of our restricted funds. And of course, with the strategic plan, and then going forward, we will identify some of these items that haven't had much activity and look to see how to reignite them. So if there are any questions on the reports, we could move right on to the budget and open discussion on the budget. So you see the items that we are proposing are in line with our strategic plan that is currently in place, and that we plan to use some of the assets from some of the net gain that we achieved this current year to cover the deficit in the budget. So I guess before we discuss the actual resolution, we could look right on to the table, which is what page is that?
Page 17.
Yes, 17 or 18. I'm sorry, 18. AJ, yes. So here we see our current budget and our current actuals, which we already reviewed, and then how that compares with what we are proposing for the next fiscal year. Real quickly, on the income side, we have the Montgomery County grant program that is, we're eligible for bridge funding to cover through December, and that will cover some of our summer camp activities. So that's in place. And based on our activity from this year, we're anticipating approximately 20,000 in contributions from our vendors toward the HOC Works program. And also, if you look on for the grants, the miscellaneous, that of course would be all grants that have yet to be identified, opportunities yet to be identified to fund the programs of the academy and any other programs that may come to us from possibly resident services. And fundraising, our gala will be scheduled for October of 2024, so that will not be fiscal year 24, but fiscal year 25. But since we will begin already our outreach probably as early as September, we anticipate receiving some contributions before the close of fiscal year 24. So we we put in a conservative amount of 50,000 for that. And that would also include some outreach that we would like to do for Giving Tuesday. And then through the course of the year, we receive miscellaneous, completely unsolicited donations. So we put that in there on the income side. Going to the expenses, traditionally the board has put this line item in for board designated funding awards through the course of the year. As you know, the board makes awards to HOC resident services, the academy, and so all those awards will basically draw from that account line. Move-in costs. This has been an ongoing line item for many years, where we provide basically some gap funding to help our residents who have been homeless to move in to permanent housing. They need help with moving fees, with move-in costs such as application fees and some basic furniture like beds and mattresses. So that, and I consulted with our permanent supportive housing staff, and that is a good figure that we could anticipate spending the next year. Our back to school drive did not occur last year, so that's why there's nothing under actuals, but we will definitely have it this year, and we would need 15,000 for that. The holiday giving is basically, again, just some gap funding. We put that in place in case we need to add to what has already been received through the holiday basket program from Montgomery County. Sometimes some families just fall through the cracks, and we need a little extra money to meet their needs. And the Tony Davis Scholarship Program, there's no actuals there because they will come up in this month, in June. So we will meet with resident services staff probably in the coming months to see how we could better expand this program. The Tony Davis Scholarship Program awarded 3 scholarships last week in a total of $15,000. And so we've been asked by HOC Budget Office budget 25 to make sure we have enough for future scholarships. And each fiscal year, the board has been awarding $20,000 in tuition assistance, and that will be taken right from the ledger from Section 3, HOC Works. And then the grant funded programs, we have the summer camp from the county, a rollover of the PNC grant that we received midway through this current fiscal year. So that's the current balance that we will spend down through October. And then the Steam Forward program for the next several months will be transitioning to a referral base, and rather than us actually coordinating it. But we will meet with them and meet with resident services staff to see what we can do to improve it so that we can keep it as basically a very strong element of the HOC Academy. And then gala costs. Again, the gala will be in October, but we have to put down payments on the venue, on the caterers, and some other upfront costs, and they will be incurred during fiscal year 24 before June of next year. So that's why we budgeted already some money for the gala. And then our ongoing administrative expenses. The audit year to date will increase by about 2,100 because the invoice for the 990 preparation was just paid on, so that will show up in the June report.
So I think, John, just one comment here. gala cost you are referring to will be the advances you would be paying for the site, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so just letting you know, these would show up as refundable advances on the financial statements. So they could technically not be this year's expense. Technically, they would be maybe next year's expense. So yes, cash would go out of this year's budget. But when the auditors come in, they might show it as a refundable advance. Since there will still be enough times for any unforeseen reason if the event was canceled, and you would know it by, in due time, the amount would be refunded.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind, that could save us, that could be reflected in the next year when the audit is done.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks, Jim.
and
Yeah.
so basically, there are two lines that are very closely connected. That would be on the income side, the miscellaneous grants, and then on the expense side, the board designated funding awards. So through the year, I will be searching for grants to help alleviate any need for the board to use this discretionary funds. So just because we set 90 there doesn't mean that if I get to that, I'm going to stop there. Our intention is to get as many grants as we can to ensure that we use as few of our assets as we need to make our budget balance.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
did it.
just jumping in really quick, Eileen, I know in chatting with you last night, you said you maybe had to leave at 5:45 or in and around there. Is that still right? I'm just wondering if we need a quorum and we need Eileen for any votes.
Oh,
Yeah, if I can, 5:50 kind of drop dead. Yeah, I have to
Okay.
be at a reception for
Okay.
someone.
okay. Well, John, I think you really did a good job explaining it to us. I'm glad we had that preliminary sort of discussion to get an understanding of it. So there's some, excitement around having a gala, and I didn't realize it was the 25th anniversary, but that's certainly a good reason for sort of a celebration. So.
All right, so I guess I'm hearing no more comments. So if there are no more comments, questions, I would like to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 23-07.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Perfect. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, and all those against say aye. All right, hearing ayes, motion 23-07 is approved. So congrats, John, you have a vision for next year's budget now.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So for next year, the next item on the agenda is approval of the funding request for the youth program. I guess, Stephanie, you will be going ahead, giving us more detail on this?
Yes, Stephanie has submitted this request, and so Eileen needs to leave in 5 minutes, Stephanie. So
Yes.
Okay,
Cliff notes.
okay.
Go.
No
Nope,
pressure.
I've read. I mean, we've probably all reviewed this anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of our key initiatives is our youth, enrichment programming, and we are continuing to explore and expand those partnerships. We are excited about coming back to the board as we build upon these programs and services that we are rolling out. But for today, we are requesting $80,000 for our after school enrichment opportunities. YES is Youth Enrichment Series, which will bring after school enrichment clubs to our properties for elementary age youth. In the proposal handout, you'll see our proposed schedule of the clubs, and it's going to be rotating among 4 HOC properties. These are properties that have historically had after-school enrichment opportunities, and we want to bring those programs and services back to those properties. The overall goal is to increase STEM interest, to cultivate our critical thinking, those critical thinking muscles of our kids, and really create a holistic experience, really. So that's essentially what we're looking to do. And we are hoping that as we pour into our elementary age youth, those participants will feed into our middle and high school initiatives, which are incredibly important. One, the first generation college bound experience and services. The other, our STEAM forward programming. Hopefully one day it will be an academy. So we have to build these relationships. We have to engage our community. So again, the ask is $80,000 to support our service provider contracts for our after school programming. And that concludes my comments.
And it's for the whole academic year.
For the whole academic year. Yes.
Okay.
And the one thing I didn't see on here, which I just am curious, and not to put you on the spot, and we can always talk through about, like, around roughly how many kids do we expect to sort of touch through these programs?
So for the 4 locations total, it's going to be about 100 kids. Our community spaces allow for about 20 to 24 kids per location, and all depending on who's registering for which 6-week clubs will depend on, that level of participation, or if we're getting additional kids, but we think it's going to be around 100 kids that we're able to support.
So that's about, roughly $800 per kid per year for the program.
Yep.
Yeah. If my rudimentary math is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No,
Oh, I was just going to say, at some point, will we get kind of like, here's what happened with these kids? And, I know I'm new to the board, so, but it would be great to, in the future, be like, here's what works, here, a little more demographics on the kids, what movement, what does success look like for them in participating during the year? So is success just they participated, or is there some measurement of, this changed, or their math or science grades changed, or they, what does that? So we don't have to have that now, but I would really like to see that at some conversation, either board meeting or some other background briefing.
Yeah, I will say, I know we're running out of time here, but I will say that in the proposal, you will see the goals and the outcome measures and the tools that we are going to be implementing to be able to capture the information that you're looking for, really in the short term, meaning from academic year to academic year. However, with the partnership that we have with First Generation College Bound, which we would love to chat about more, and I'm sure that we'll bring that back around when it's time. We have an opportunity to have long-term data and long-term successes of our youth through college and beyond to career. And so that particular partnership is really important to the agency. And we hope to share a little bit more about that in due time.
Yeah, and I would just say, I think some of those things that are outcomes are more activities, right? Like they're learning about food groups. That doesn't mean, is their diet changing? That's the outcome, right? Or they're learning to cook. Is the outcome something has changed in what they're eating? That's an outcome. So,
understood.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess, can we get a motion?
With that, I'm fine with approving.
Yeah, all right. Any other questions from any of the board members?
Just since I'm new to the whole thing, to clarify, so this request, this 80,000 is coming from the 120 discretionary that was just part of the budget we approved, is that
That's
correct? Okay.
For now,
now.
but it's my intent.
Depending on the
to-
balance of grants and all of
Yes.
that. Understood.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, the academy needs this commitment so that they can start the procurement process. And who knows, we may not even need it all. So.
All right. I guess there are no more questions, comments. Then I would like to ask for a motion to approve resolution 23-08.
I can motion.
Motion. I'll make a second.
All right, who approved it? Sorry, who?
I motioned and Eileen
Okay.
seconded.
Okay, thank you so much. I didn't hear that. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, any objections? Yes, hearing none. Stephanie, congrats, 23-08 is approved.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you, Eileen. I guess you need to leave.
Yes. Is it okay if I leave now? I'm sorry for this.
Yeah.
It was just two
Right,
things
no, that's
conflicting. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
thank
I'll
you so
catch
much.
up with you guys. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for participating. Thanks. All right, I think the next item is Ken going over the strategic planning process, I guess.
Yes, that's correct.
Hello, Ken. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely to see all of you again. If you don't mind, I'm just going to share. I have a presentation on my screen. All right. So HOC, as I think you all know, is updating its 5-year strategic plans, something we do every 5 years. The purpose of the strategic plan is to, evaluate the past performance of the agency, and then to rethink our vision, our mission, our values, our priorities. And then this year, this round, we are adding a focus on implementation and monitoring. And you'll see that in the way that we structured the strategic planning process this time around. The other thing I want to point out that's new that hasn't been in our prior strategic plans is a statement of values. So we have in our existing HOC vision, mission, goals, but we haven't had a statement of the values that kind of guide and define the agency. So this is an opportunity to develop that and another way to sort of get consensus about what the agency is and what our priorities ought to be. And that certainly includes HOCP. So this presentation really is going to focus on our sort of overall HOC strategic planning process. And then I understand we're going to have some discussion about HOCP and how that plan will kind of fit in with the broader effort. This is our strategic planning team. So we have a committee that's composed of Chelsea, Kaireen, Tia, and myself. And then we've retained a consultant called Public Works. They've done strategic planning for a large number of state and local government entities across the country. One recent project was for Baltimore County. They did like a full review, a government-wide review, and were able to develop millions of dollars of savings for the agency, for the whole county, as well as sort of help to set some policy priorities for the county executive there. And they have a number of other great projects that they've performed. So they're helping us to ensure that this is a thorough and professional process. The approach we've taken is a 2-phase approach. So phase 1 is the strategic plan itself. There's a stakeholder engagement piece, which is what we're in now, about to go into overdrive with surveys. We're going to be surveying our staff, the general public, of course, our customers, both residents and voucher holders, applicants, folks who are on the wait list, as well as our vendors, and our partners, service providers and other nonprofits, and the folks that we work with. We are also going to do sort of in-depth focus groups, focusing on mostly our customers, waitlist applicants, and others, so where we can get kind of qualitative information to supplement the quantitative data we collect from the surveys. And we're doing a large round of interviews, with internal stakeholders, staff, executive team members, as well as external stakeholders, such as other nonprofit developers in the county, development partners of ours, government agencies that we work with, like DHCA and HHS, to make sure that we can get as many viewpoints as possible. The public works team is doing an extensive document review and data analysis to be able to do an ecosystem, a needs analysis, an analysis of our sort of current state, as well as a profile of our community and the people that we serve. And then they're doing sort of a national review to help benchmark our us and develop best practices. Of course, vision, mission, and values, strategic priorities. And then, so this will all be in the strategic plan. And then we move to phase 2. Once the strategic plan has been adopted, we've kind of all agreed on the priorities for the agency. Then it's time to develop an implementation plan. The sort of detailed structure is part of sort of a deliverable of the strategic plan. So that will be in through the fall and sort of into next year. But we expect to have detailed action steps for the goals that we set for the agency. What are the metrics by which we're going to measure success? What are the specific actions that we're going to take over the next 5 years to achieve them? And then develop dashboards that help us monitor, whether and how we are meeting those goals. This is, I promise, I know I'm talking a lot for each slide, but I only have a few. So here's the sort of rough timeline for our process here. We had our kickoff in May. We've begun, we're about halfway through our interviews. Coming up in July, we have 2 town halls planned. We are preparing this week to launch our surveys. And then later in July, we'll be doing our focus groups based on the, helping to using the data from the surveys and the town halls to refine, which are the groups that we really need to engage with to get more in-depth information. Through August, we'll be developing the materials for the plan, and we've sort of have a defined process for our consultant to develop materials and then re-engage with HOC to validate them and make sure that we're in the right direction. We hope to bring a plan to the commission for their approval in September, and then we would move into the implementation, development of the implementation plan, and obviously implementation of the plan itself. So, and I'm gonna go to the next slide, and then I'm gonna come right back to this one. So this is the last slide. Just want to highlight, this is our announcement that's going to be going out on a number of different platforms, and we're going to be doing mailings. and postings in our properties. We've developed a full sort of communications plan to try to get as much feedback as possible from really all stakeholders, but particularly from our customers and applicants. So we have a survey, and then we have these two town halls, July 10th and July 11th. One is virtual and one will be in person at our headquarters in Kensington. So we certainly, one thing I will ask is once that we've pushed this all live, we'll, share this with John, and hopefully you all can help us to get the word out, to your networks. Make sure that we're able to share this thoroughly as well. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. So I could stop there and answer any questions or comments, and then I have based on this sort of timeline, sort of a question about how and when HOCP and the board would like to be engaged in the plan, and we have some options. Okay.
So I will let I'm sure Teresa has some interesting questions on this revolving the timeline and the level of effort. The one question that I have is I'm sure, are you using the same vendor also for HOCs? Correct?
Oh yeah, sorry. So this is all for HOC's strategic plan. So we have one consultant.
Right.
And I think, a component of what we're hoping to do is to, after, I think, and I'll sort of turn to John for a nod. I think I'm getting this right, that after HOC completes its strategic plan, then we would turn to HOCP, which would have a separate strategic plan just for the for that organization.
Right. And just because HOC is using the same vendor, it's like by default as a sole source, you're using the same vendor, or did you also get bids from any other vendor or consider other vendors for this?
Oh, yes, we did a full RFP. We had five bidders, 5 proposals that we chose from, and we did, we had the same team that you saw here was our selection team for the RFP. Sorry, I didn't go into how we selected Public Works. So this was, in our view, the most compelling proposal, and that's how we engage with them.
And Ken, just to piggyback on what Varun said, the bid and the proposal that you guys got includes the development of an HOCP plan after this, or strategic plan, because we are, Ken and Varun, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're coming up on the end of our existing strategic plan for HOCP.
Absolutely. So our approach was this, and we shared it in one of the prior meetings. So since we knew that we were getting ready to engage in the full strategic planning process for HOC, and it was also time for HOCP. I know in the past, HOCP has led its own strategic planning and had to draft and all the things. And so we wanted to leverage that same company to assist with creating the strategic plan for HOCP. So we've added this as a component. We will add addendum to their contract to ensure that this is like the development, the actual creation of it is something that they do. They're aware of that, and they also know that a part of this strategic planning process is to ensure that it infuses the feedback from HOCP. So we were thinking about that in twofold. One, making sure that once the data is available, when they're providing that input to the HOC board, that information at the same time is also being disseminated to the HOCP board. We also are going to plan a mix and mingle opportunity, non-formal for the HOC board and the HOCP board members to get a chance to meet each other. And then we will retain the consultant to do that next follow-up in terms of creating the actual plan for HOCP.
That sounds great, Chelsea. And I remember we did have an initial conversation about this, and I appreciate you, you know, refreshing my brain on that. And it seems to make good sense to leverage, you know, one vendor, that, because there's going to be some overlap, right? Some things that we hear that you know, we all hear as part of the HOC, you know, those forums and opportunities to get stakeholder outreach and feedback, could help inform our own plan, to some degree. Although I think, we may want, and maybe there's an opportunity to insert a little bit of targeted sort of questions, maybe in a, you know, not to overwhelm, you know, the questions that are going to need to be asked to stakeholders, but maybe there's some component, or we can think about, okay, are there some resident-centric questions that could be relevant for both HOC and HOCP that we might be able to include on this front end that we could leverage for our strategic plan as well. Just a thought.
Yeah. So I think our thinking was, because we would like to have the consultant have an opportunity to engage with the board and you know, hear your feedback, and but so I think the thinking was that we would wait to do that once you know, they've had a chance to hear that feedback from other stakeholders through the town halls, the surveys, and then that way they can share that. You know, it can be more of a two-way exchange where they can share the outcomes there with you. You can have that, and then, you know, at the same time we can get your feedback. Make sure that's, you know, we have your views on the actual HOC plan, because it's, you know, I think it's important that the two plans be in sync.
I agree. I was just going to echo that. I think, you know, the importance of hearing directly from the clients and residents and customers to help drive our plan is really important. And related to that point, have you all identified targets of sort of for engagement? Obviously, you're trying a variety of different engagement methods, and, you know, but do you have a, you know, target or a goal for what you would ideally like to, you know, percentage of residents or, you know, types of I mean, how are you thinking about that as you've been developing that outreach strategy?
We don't have a specific target. Certainly for the surveys, I mean, we're not treating it as a, you know, we certainly want to have a very large number. We have developed an incentive program. So part of our rollout is that we will be able to provide some financial incentives for our customers. Not for the general public, but to be, you know, to take the survey and participate in the town halls and other events. So we're certainly hoping that will drive participation a little higher than it might have otherwise. Similarly, for the focus groups, we will be providing some, you know, financial reward for folks that participate, you know, in that are, you know, give their time. From our customers and those, you know, sort of directly affected groups. So we certainly have thought a lot about how to drive as much participation as possible. You know, that's another reason that we're doing 2 town halls. We thought, you know, 1 virtual, 1 in person. But no, we have not set specific targets.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask also, I assume this is part of it, but are you thinking about sort of translation and engagement of residents who English may not be their first language? Okay.
Yes.
I see vigorous
absolutely.
nodding, so I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, I think that's a key issue. Absolutely.
I would just say that, the outreach efforts are going to be pretty extensive, everything from survey to posting in local newsletters, Hispanic newspapers. We're looking at radio, we're looking at all types of outreach through the various nonprofits to get the word out. And then through our website, through text messages and emails. And then the town halls, one will be virtual so that we can capture people who aren't able to attend in person. One will be in person. So we're really trying to get as broad of a reach out there. I think this is the most extensive outreach that HOC has ever undertaken in terms of its strategic planning process. So it is going to be pretty robust. And then based on the themes that we hear, there will be a series of follow-up focus sessions with various special populations, depending on if there are certain themes that we're needing to get additional insight on. It might be the senior population, it might be Hispanic, it might be African American, it could be individuals with disabilities, but there is also a plan for a series of focus group sessions as well. Thank you, Stephanie. And so I think, Ken, can you transition to the part of the conversation where we kind of think about when and how HOCP would like to be engaged? I know we want to get your feedback or allow an opportunity for you to hear the feedback that we get from all of the data, but yes.
I think there's a question, and there's a little bit of a trade-off. So one option would be that we could, if assuming everybody is available, meet with the board, with the consultant in late July or early August. We would have completed our stakeholder engagement process, and we would have that data and information that we'd be able to share with you. But that would be kind of early enough that we could then also get your feedback and ensure that that we account for that in the development of the HOC strategic plan. Another option would be that we could come more in September after Public Works has really sort of completed their analysis, but at that point they will largely have completed the strategic plan. The upside is, they will have more information and a more polished presentation to share as far as having done more of the data analysis pieces and more of the background, but I think will be more difficult to incorporate you'll have less of an opportunity to get feedback into the HOC strategic plan at that point. So that would really be just.
You offered up both options, so can we say both?
Oh God.
I mean, I think earlier is better if we have to prioritize, and then kind of hear a readout at some point in the fall on where things have landed. I don't know if others have different thoughts.
I think having the opportunity earlier on to get the feedback, to also to help us to be thinking about, and process that. But to the extent that these, they are, from what I understand, different, but should relate to one another and complement each other, feels like a sort of more organic and natural process, less siloed.
I would like to have it earlier if we can only have one. I mean, I think if we're going to be in this, we might as well, participate and get our opinions out there.
Certainly 100%. I can promise to, come back in September and, provide all of the information and present the strategic plan. We're, as Chelsea mentioned, we're going to work with the consultant to define exactly what the HOCP piece looks like. So as of right now, we have sort of one engagement with the board accounted for in our current contract. They are aware that we're going to modify it to do more. So certainly we do expect to have re-engagement. I think the question would be, would that come again in September before the plan is adopted? Or after, as we, begin to undertake the
Yeah.
HOCP plan? But
Yeah, I think we heard, one of the things I will say that is the pro and the con is that might feel a little different as it pertains to the vantage point that the HOC board has over HOCP board in terms of upfront input, is the fact that I think, or one of the things we were thinking about is this group might benefit from the data that comes from the surveying and finding out really what the needs are. You're not in the day-to-day operations or getting the weekly updates and involved in some of the overarching oversight that the HOC board does have. So they may be a little bit more familiar with concerns, issues, etc. But either way, I think hearing from this group early on, and then hearing the kind of questions that should be on the radars as well, is a good strategy. And what we'll do is make sure that we circle back to Public Works, that we get that session. They have approached it by way of kind of making accommodations to do virtual meetings so that they can hear feedback, ask questions, and we'll get that going, and we'll circle back to find out what everyone's availability is to participate in that. And then we'll also, of course, work through when and how that next phase would happen. Okay.
Good.
Great. Okay. Ken, I think that's it, right? Is that it for your update?
no, that's it. I really appreciate it, and I think that makes sense. So likely, it sounds like end of July or early August, obviously depending on everybody's availability. And that sounds like a productive path forward.
Yes.
All right. I guess we have past our allocated time. Ken, this was very helpful. Thank you. If there is no further business, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks for attending.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you. Yes.
Take care.
Have a good
Night.
evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Yeah.